Section 48 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jennifer Stearns. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 3, by Henry Gray. Lymphatics of the Abdomen and Pelvis, Part 1. The lymph glands of the abdomen and pelvis may be divided from the situations into a. Parietal, lying behind the peritoneum and in close association with the larger blood vessels, and b. Visceral, which are found in relation to the visceral arteries. The parietal glands include the following groups: external iliac, common iliac, epigastric, iliac circumflex, hypogastric, sacral, lumbar, lateral aortic, pre-aortic, retroaortic. The external iliac glands, from 8 to 10 in number, lie along the external iliac vessels. They are arranged in 3 groups, one on the lateral, another on the medial, and a third on the anterior aspect of the vessels. The third group is, however, sometimes absent. Their principal afferents are derived from the inguinal and subinguinal glands. The deep lymphatics of the abdominal wall below the umbilicus and of the adductor region of the thigh, and the lymphatics from the glans penis vel clitoridis, the membranous urethra, the prostate, the fundus of the bladder, the cervix uteri, and upper part of the vagina. The common iliac glands, 4 to 6 in number, are grouped behind and on the sides of the common iliac artery, 1 or 2 being placed below the bifurcation of the aorta, in front of the 5th lumbar vertebra. They drain chiefly the hypogastric and external iliac glands, and their efferents pass to the lateral aortic glands. The epigastric glands, lymphoglandulo epigastrico, 3 or 4 in number, are placed alongside the lower portion of the inferior epigastric vessels. The iliac circumflex glands, 2 to 4 in number, are situated along the course of the deep iliac circumflex vessels. They are sometimes absent. The hypogastric glands, lymphoglandulo hypogastrico, internal iliac gland, surround the hypogastric vessels and receive the lymphatics corresponding to the distribution of the branches of the hypogastric artery. That is, they receive lymphatics from the pelvic viscera, from the deeper parts of the perineum, including the membranous and cavernous portions of the urethra, and from the buttock and back of the thigh. An obturator gland is sometimes seen in the upper part of the obturator foramen. The sacral glands are placed in the concavity of the sacrum, in relation to the middle and lateral sacral arteries. They receive lymphatics from the rectum and posterior wall of the pelvis. The efferents of the hypogastric group end in the common iliac glands. The lumbar glands, lymphoglandulo lumbales, are very numerous, and consist of right and left lateral aortic, pre-aortic, and retroaortic groups. The right lateral aortic glands are situated partly in front of the inferior vena cava, near the termination of the renal vein, and partly behind it on the origin of the psoas major, and on the right crus of the diaphragm. The left lateral aortic glands form a chain on the left side of the abdominal aorta in front of the origin of the psoas major and left crus of the diaphragm. The glands on either side receive a. the efferents of the common iliac glands, b. the lymphatics from the testes in the male and from the ovary, uterine tube, and body of the uterus in the female, c. the lymphatics from the kidney and suprarenal gland, and d. the lymphatics draining the lateral abdominal muscles and accompanying the lumbar veins. Most of the efferent vessels of the lateral aortic glands converge to form the right and left lumbar trunks, which join the cisterna chyli, but some enter the pre- and retroaortic glands, and others pierce the crura of the diaphragm to join the lower end of the thoracic duct. The pre-aortic glands lie in front of the aorta, and may be divided into celiac, superior mesenteric, and inferior mesenteric groups, arranged around the origins of the corresponding arteries. They receive a few vessels from the lateral aortic glands, but their principal afferents are derived from the viscera supplied by the 3 arteries with which they are associated. Some of the efferents pass to the retroaortic glands, but the majority unite to form the intestinal trunk, which enters the cisterna chyli. The retroaortic glands are passed below the cisterna chyli on the bodies of the third and fourth lumbar vertebrae. They receive lymphatic trunks from the lateral and preaortic glands, while their efferents end in the cisterna chyli. The lymphatic vessels of the abdomen and pelvis. The lymphatic vessels of the walls of the abdomen and pelvis may be divided into two sets, superficial and deep. The superficial vessels follow the course of the superficial blood vessels and converge to the superficial inguinal glands. Those derived from the integument of the front of the abdomen below the umbilicus follow the course of the superficial epigastric vessels, and those from the sides of the lumbar part of the abdominal wall pass along the crest of the ilium with the superficial iliac circumflex vessels. The superficial lymphatic vessels of the gluteal region turn horizontally around the buttock and join the superficial inguinal and subinguinal glands. The deep vessels run alongside the principal blood vessels. Those are the parietes of the pelvis, which accompany the superior and inferior gluteal and obturator vessels, follow the course of the hypogastric artery, and ultimately join the lateral aortic glands. Lymphatic vessels of the perineum and external genitals. The lymphatic vessels of the perineum, of the integument of the penis, and of the scrotum or vulva follow the course of the external pudendal vessels and end in the superficial inguinal and subinguinal glands. Those of the glands penis vel clitoridis terminate partly in the subinguinal glands and partly in the external iliac glands. The visceral glands are associated with the branches of the celiac, superior and inferior mesenteric arteries. Those related to the branches of the celiac artery form three sets, gastric, hepatic, and pancreaticorenal. The gastric glands consist of two sets, superior and inferior. The superior gastric glands, lymphoglandulo gastrico superioris, accompany the left gastric artery and are divisible into three groups, namely A. Upper, on the stem of the artery, B. Lower, accompanying the descending branches of the artery along the cardiac half of the lesser curvature of the stomach, between the two layers of the lesser omentum, and C. Pericardial, outlying members of the gastric glands, disposed in a manner comparable to a chain of beads around the neck of the stomach. Jameson and Dobson. They receive their efferents from the stomach. Their efferents pass to the celiac group of the preaortic glands. The inferior gastric glands, lymphoglandulo gastrico inferiores, right gastric epilogic gland, 4 to 7 in number, lie between the two layers of the greater omentum along the pyloric half of the greater curvature of the stomach. The hepatic glands, lymphoglandulo hepatico, consist of the following groups: A. Hepatic, on the stem of the hepatic artery, and extending upward along the common bile duct, between the two layers of the lesser omentum, as far as the porta hepatis. The cystic gland, a member of this group, is placed near the neck of the gallbladder. B. Subpyloric, 4 or 5 in number, in close relation to the bifurcation of the gastroduodenal artery, in the angle between the superior and descending parts of the duodenum. An outlying member of this group is sometimes found above the duodenum, on the right gastric pyloric artery. The glands of the hepatic chain receive efferents from the stomach, duodenum, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Their efferents join the celiac group of preaortic glands. The pancreaticorenal glands, lymphoglandulo pancreaticorenalis, splenic glands, accompany the renal splenic artery and are situated in relation to the posterior surface of the upper border of the pancreas. 1 or 2 members of this group are found in the gastrorenal ligament, Jameson and Dobson, in the work that was cited. Their efferents are derived from the stomach, spleen, and pancreas. Their efferents join the celiac group of the preaortic glands. The superior mesenteric glands may be divided into 3 principal groups: mesenteric, ileocolic, and mesocolic. The mesenteric glands, lymphoglandulo mesenterico, lie between the layers of the mesentery. They vary from 100 to 150 in number, and may be grouped into 3 sets, namely, one lying close to the wall of the small intestine, among the terminal twigs of the superior mesenteric artery; a second, in relation to the loops and primary branches of the vessels; and a third along the trunk of the artery. The ileocolic glands, from 10 to 20 in number, form a chain around the ileocolic artery, but show a tendency to subdivision into two groups, one near the duodenum and another on the lower part of the trunk of the artery. Where the vessel divides into its terminal branches, the chain is broken up into several groups, namely, a. Ileal, the region in the ileal branch of the artery; b. Anterior ileocolic, usually of 3 glands, in the ileocolic fold, near the wall of the cecum; c. Posterior ileocolic, mostly placed in the angle between the ileum and the colon, but partly lying behind the cecum at its junction with the ascending colon; d. A single gland between the layers of the mesenteriole of the vermiform process; e. Right colic, along the medial side of the ascending colon. The mesocolic glands, lymphoglandulo mesocolico, are numerous, and lie between the layers of the transverse mesocolon, in close relation to the transverse colon. They are best developed in the neighbourhood of the right and left colic flexures. 1 or 2 small glands are occasionally seen along the trunk of the right colic artery, and others are found in relation to the trunk and branches of the middle colic artery. The superior mesenteric glands receive afferents from the jejunum, ileum, cecum, vermiform process, and the ascending and transverse parts of the colon. Their efferents pass to the pre-aortic glands. The inferior mesenteric glands consist of a. Small glands on the branches of the left colic and sigmoid arteries; b. A group in the sigmoid mesocolon around the superior hemorrhoidal artery; and c. A pararectal group in contact with the muscular coat of the rectum. They drain the descending iliac and sigmoid parts of the colon and the upper part of the rectum. Their efferents pass to the pre-aortic glands. End of Section 48. Recording by Jennifer Stearns, Concord, New Hampshire. Henry Gray. Lymphatics of the Abdomen and Pelvis, Part 1. The lymph glands of the abdomen and pelvis may be divided, from the situations, into a. Parietal, lying behind the peritoneum, and in close association with the larger blood vessels; and b. Visceral, which are found in relation to the visceral arteries. The parietal glands include the following groups: external iliac, common iliac, epigastric, iliac circumflex, hypogastric, sacral, lumbar, lateral aortic, pre-aortic, retroaortic. The external iliac glands, from 8 to 10 in number, lie along the external iliac vessels. They are arranged in 3 groups, one on the lateral, another on the medial, and a third on the anterior aspect of the vessels. The third group is, however, sometimes absent. Their principal afferents are derived from the inguinal and subinguinal glands. Section 48 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jennifer Stearns. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 3. The deep lymphatics of the abdominal wall below the umbilicus and of the adductor region of the thigh, and the lymphatics from the glans penis vel clitoridis, the membranous urethra, the prostate, the fundus of the bladder, the cervix uteri, and upper part of the vagina.